In a world where influence shapes reality, where power is held by those who hide in plain sight, some empires flourish not through glory, but through secrecy. Tonight we reveal one such empire. This is not merely the story of Sean Diddy Combs, the mogul or celebrity. This is the story of a complex hidden empire where silence is the currency and control the weapon. An empire meticulously designed to keep the powerful in power and the loyal bound forever. Beyond closed doors, in darkened corridors, lay secrets that should have never been uncovered. Secrets that protected the powerful and silenced the vulnerable. This story is not merely about wealth or fame. It's about influence wielded without compassion, where loyalty is a contract of fear and silence, a shield that comes at any cost. You're listening to True Crime Chronicles EAT. We look to publish 3 times a week on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 EST. It's a sad indictment of the volume of true crime that we can continually able to post so many videos each week. Now enough small talk, let's get straight into it. This is not just the story of one man's ascent, it's the story of those caught in his web, drawn in by promises of fame only to find themselves trapped, powerless, in a labyrinth they couldn't escape. This is a world where dreams descend into darkness, where loyalty is manipulated, and where innocence is sacrificed for the sake of silence. With each revelation, we expose a hidden truth darker than we could have ever imagined. The unseen rise, connections, and control. Diddy's empire was not built in isolation. His connections extended across continents, touching finance, politics, Hollywood, each alliance strategically crafted not just for influence, but for protection. Those within his circle found that loyalty was not simply expected, it was enforced with an iron grip.
Most people thought his power came from money, from success in music, but it was deeper than that. He had connections in every industry, people who could silence the right questions, people who could make things disappear. It was like a silent agreement, a system where everyone had something to gain and just as much to lose.
He had connections most people wouldn't even believe. People in finance, in government, even a few high-ranking politicians. I don't know if they realized what they were getting into, but once they were in, they couldn't just walk away. It was as if his circle was protected by an invisible wall, a wall that couldn't be breached.
I worked in finance for years, but I'd never seen anything like this. His connections ran deep. He didn't just have friends. He had allies, people who could protect him, people who would turn a blind eye because they owed him. It was all carefully constructed, every alliance, every favor, every handshake, it all served a purpose.
This wasn't just a network, it was a shield. A carefully constructed web of relationships that could silence questions, halt investigations, erase doubts. In return for loyalty and silence, those within his circle found security. But they also found themselves bound, unable to escape his grasp. Diddy's empire was protected not by wealth, but by the silent compliance of the powerful and the fearful alike. The freak-off, parties of power and control. Behind closed doors, a world unfolded where power reigned supreme. A world shrouded in secrecy and driven by unchecked influence. The freak-off parties weren't just elite gatherings, they were performances of control, meticulously orchestrated to disorient and to captivate. Those invited entered expecting extravagance but found themselves in situations that left them vulnerable, isolated, and often fearful.
You walk in, and everything seems glamorous, but it's not long before you feel it. That shift in the air, phones are taken, you're watched constantly, and you realize there's no leaving until they decide you're done. It's like being caged in gold, surrounded by everything you think you want, but you're completely trapped.
At first, it was the thrill that kept me coming back. The parties, the atmosphere, the exclusivity, it was intoxicating. But over time, I began to feel like something was off. People weren't just partying, they were playing roles, following unspoken rules, and you knew that if you broke them, there'd be consequences.
I helped organize a few of those nights. My job was to make sure everything was perfect. But it wasn't just about luxury. There were rules, protocols. Everyone had a place, a role, and if you stepped out of line, let's just say people learned not to question too much.
You'd feel like you were being watched the entire time, even in the most private moments. There were always eyes on you, guards at the doors, and the enforcers. They weren't just there to keep things safe. They were there to keep things under control. I didn't know who to trust, not even myself.
The freak-off wasn't merely a party. It was a carefully crafted environment where control reigned supreme. People entered expecting an escape, a night of freedom, only to find themselves in a world where every move was watched, every word was noted. For many, the allure of the party was replaced by a creeping realization that they were, in fact, prisoners in plain sight. The enforcers, silent enablers of control. In every empire, there are those who operate in the shadows, unseen and unquestioned. Diddy's enforcers weren't just security. They were guardians of silence, carefully chosen to protect his secrets at any cost. These enforcers didn't just ensure safety. They enforced loyalty, and their loyalty was absolute. A silent army ready to do whatever it took to keep order.
We didn't just stand there. We watched, we listened, and if anyone got out of line, we'd deal with it. Our job wasn't to ask questions, it was to make sure things went exactly as planned. And people knew one wrong move and they'd feel the consequences.
I saw people crossing once, and only once. You'd never hear from them again. Sometimes it was a simple reminder, a look. Other times it was more direct. But everyone understood. This was a line you didn't cross. You didn't betray him. Not if you wanted to keep everything you'd worked for.
People think we were just security, but we were more than that. We were there to protect him, to keep everyone in line. And we were bound too. Bound by the same silence we enforced. If someone asked too many questions, they didn't stay around long enough to get answers.
The enforcers didn't just keep the peace. They were there to send a message. I'd see people cross a line and they'd be gone, as if they'd never existed. And for the rest of us, we got the message loud and clear.
These enforcers weren't simply bodyguards, they were the unseen protectors of Diddy's empire, bound to the same silence they enforced on others. Their presence alone kept people in line, a constant reminder that loyalty was not a choice, but a requirement. And for those who dared to defy him, there were consequences, swift and irreversible. The raid. Vault of evidence uncovered. When authorities finally breached the fortress, they found more than they expected. Encrypted files, private recordings, and a vault filled with hidden contracts. What was supposed to be a standard investigation turned into a revelation. A Pandora's box that exposed the calculated control Diddy held over his empire. Each document, each recording, was a silent testament to the secrets that had kept him untouchable for so long.
I've seen a lot in my career, but this was different. This wasn't just evidence, it was a roadmap, a blueprint of control. Financial records, personal files, encrypted messages. It was as if he knew we'd come one day and he'd prepared. This vault, it was like finding the heart of his empire.
The detail was astonishing. It was clear this wasn't just personal, it was ammunition. Every document, every recording was a tool he could wield when he needed to. We'd only scratched the surface, but already we could see the scale of his control.
These weren't ordinary financial records. We found offshore accounts, shell companies, transfers that had been hidden from everyone except those who knew where to look. It was clear this wasn't just about protecting his money. It was about hiding something much darker.
This vault was his leverage. People don't understand the power of knowing everyone's secrets, of having it all in one place, accessible whenever needed. This wasn't just security, it was a weapon. And we had to uncover every piece to fully understand the scope of his empire.
The vault wasn't merely a collection of files. It was a fortress, a meticulously crafted archive that held the truths no one wanted exposed. Financial secrets, personal recordings, messages, all of it carefully stored, ready to be wielded at a moment's notice. This was the final layer of Diddy's empire, the ultimate measure of control that kept him safe, untouchable, beyond reproach. The reckoning. As the months unfolded, the walls of silence began to collapse. One by one, those who had been silent stepped forward, revealing the years of control, of manipulation, of secrets hidden under layers of fear. Each testimony, each piece of evidence was a step toward the reckoning, a final judgment on an empire that once seemed indestructible. This wasn't just an empire. It was a fortress of psychological control, a world where loyalty was enforced and silence bought with fear. But as the secrets come to light, as those once silenced find their voices, we are left with one question. What price would you pay for freedom, and how far would you go to keep your secrets safe? In the end, secrets may be hidden, but the truth, it always finds its way into the light. This was the Dark Empire, exposed, one truth at a time. And for those who still hide, your time is running out.